Hey guys, what is happening? Niad here with Film Comics Explained. We are back into our run on Aliens Outbreak. When we had left, the Benedict, a military vessel carrying Hicks and Newt, had been boarded by the ruthless Massey. Massey and his mercenaries intend on destroying the Benedict and retrieving alien samples for a nefarious corporation called Bionational. A relationship was also beginning to blossom between Newt and Beulah before the hijacking. Newt was initially going to stay in the vents and hide, but tells us that she essentially will not let her family die again, at least not without putting up a fight. We return to the Benedict to find Newt watching events play out from above. Massey tells us that this was much easier than he had thought it would be. He asks his men if they double-check the roster for the Benedict. One of them tells him that Stevens had killed Easley and Jones before dumping their bodies, and the rest of the crew are basically accounted for. Hicks yells at Massey, saying he now understood why Stevens did not want him to load the plasma rifles. Massey explains to Hicks that this corporation's reach has no bounds. We can see Hicks trying to warn him about the aliens and what they did to the colony on Hadley's Hope, and the possibility of what could happen if that came to Earth. Massey tells him that he's already thought about it, as the company had already begun to breathe. He informs Hicks that he will be staying on board the Benedict with him, while his men drop down onto the planet. He wants to use their respective Hicks as leverage. Hicks asks him why they are even going to the planet if they have alien eggs on Earth, and Massey tells him that the pursuit of science has charged him with investigating the homeworld before returning. He goes on to say that they have no idea what they might find, but theorizes that if it follows traditional patterns, there's probably some sort of ecological balance, with predator and prey, like him and Hicks. He informs him that although the alien is a remarkable life form, it may not be the dominant species on this homeworld, which is why he is using his marines as bait to fish out a larger predator. As the ship begins its descent onto the planet, Massey tells the pilot to ensure the data recorders are up, as the corporation will want to see this. We are told that the atmosphere is marginal, which I assume to mean mildly oxygenated, in that they can still breathe, but the ratio of oxygen to the other chemical elements is much smaller than that of Earth. The mercenaries have taken all the masks and are making the Marines breathe this air, which could be fatal in the long term. We can see some of the mercenaries preparing their small flying cars. Two of them are relieved not to be on the ground as they reveal the plan. The Marines are essentially going to have facehuggers forced onto them. We return to Newt, who tells us that she has to kill them all. She explains that the air ducts wormed through the ship, separated by an intricate network of automatic interior doors. She goes on to tell us that this was the technique used by the aliens on Hadley's Hope to attack them. She retrieves the assault loaders and speculates that it must have been Stevens who sabotaged this. She tells us that Massey saved her the trouble by killing him for her. She then explains that the intruders were calm and confident that they were in complete control, much like Hicks' crew before they were all wiped out by the Xenomorphs. She tells us that the Benedict did not belong to those bastards in the loading bay. It belonged to her. We see the Marines walking through the alien planet. They appear to be confused about why this is happening. One of them says that he thought they were all supposed to be on the same side. His comrade tells him there are no sides anymore, just money. Mercenaries are watching the bait walk off below them, thinking that they have the best and safest seats in the house. We can also see a native creature of this world watching them from the distance. The Marines are on their own here. They approach the entrance and notice the interior is fused out of bone and petrified tissue. They enter as cautiously as they can, as one of them asks where the aliens were and why they weren't attacking them. He then approaches an egg and is about to touch it. His friend tells him to back off, and he replies by saying there's something inside and that it was moving but not attacking. He asks why they're still alive. We then head to Massey, who tells us that something is wrong with the mission. We then immediately cut to the mercenaries on the flying cars who are under attack. The best way to describe the creatures would be to call them green xeno-dragons. They tell us that the sky is now full of them, as we see one of the cars flung into the ground. Two of them manage to land before entering the alien chamber. As they head inside, they ask Massey for backup, who is unresponsive. The mercenaries venture further inside. One of them sees the eggs and guesses that this must be where they breed. At that moment, a facehugger leaps onto him as the Xenomorphs come out of everywhere to attack them. We head to the Marines who are further ahead and hear the sound behind them. One of them says that it sounds like gunfire as Bueller breaks through to create an opening. He tells his team to head to the lander and arm themselves. We also see Newt breaking into Stephen's quarters as she tells us Bueller was on the dropship. She then shrugs him off and tells us that the aliens did not need love. Loneliness, fear, and love were all meaningless concepts to the aliens, who only understood death. We see a smile appear on her face as she finds where Stevens had hidden the ammo and loads a full clip. Massey is watching the death of his men with indifference. One of them is cornered, with aliens approaching him. Massey tells Hicks that his Marines are good, as they have managed to get away from the hive, and have overpowered his men. He goes on to say that he may have underestimated him, as we see him setting up the explosive device. Hicks asks him what will happen to his own men. Massey tells him that he doesn't care, as the principal objective was to keep the government from securing an alien specimen. He's about to say, "Mission accomplished," before Newt bursts in and tells the SOB to drop it. He drops his pistol and says that they seem to have missed one, before asking if she was the ship's mascot. She tells him to release Hicks. She asks him a second time as she begins to question why she hadn't already fired at him. Massey tells her that she is too pretty to be a Marine, and says that he bets she has never even fired one of those before. Hicks yells at her to shoot him, as Massey slowly walks over to her. She asks him not to come closer, and he tells her she wouldn't want to burden herself with the guilt of murdering another human being. He lunges at her, and she tells us it wasn't fair. She wanted to be just like the aliens, and she was only human, as she trips over and falls back. Massey grabs her and flings her against the wall. He calls her a stupid bitch for trying to use a weapon against him. He informs her that he doesn't need a weapon, and could open her throat with his finger and feel the blood spray down his arms. He puts her up against the console and tells her that she wasn't worth the effort, before saying that she reminded him of his ex-wife. Man, this guy's messed up. A smile appears on his face, and we can see the gun pointed to her head. At that moment, Hicks tackles Massey, giving Newt enough time to jump away. He opens fire at her as she hides behind the computers. She tells us that she is done with running, as she picks up a nearby gun and shoots him like a badass. Massey tells her that she doesn't scare him while coughing up blood. He's about to say that she doesn't even have the strength to finish him off as Newt unloads the full clip into him, saying that he was wrong. Hicks and Newt then reach the timer of the bomb to see that the ground crew do not have much time left. She yells at Bueller to get away from the lander as it is about to explode. We can see some of the Marines escaping the blast of a grenade that one of them had thrown. We then head back to Hicks, who is putting the ship into auto mode. His plan is to transfer the Benedict's nukes to the lander and pick the Marines up. He orders Bueller to find somewhere safe and to wait for them, but Bueller tells him that they can't. He explains that they managed to salvage the blasters and ammunition from the lander, and that they were now going back to the hive. Newt screams at him, saying he can't be serious. Bueller simply tells her that they have lost too many men and won't let any more people die. Hicks tries to tell him that he is wasting time trying to retrieve the mercenaries who wanted them dead in the first place. Bueller tells him that he can't explain, but he has to go back. He tells Newt that he loves her, before cutting the transmission. Hicks and Newt then begin their descent onto the alien homeworld. Newt is looking at the screens and seeing the messages and alerts as they pop up, but Hicks is ignoring this. His mind is lost in vengeance. We return to the Marines, who are coordinating an attack against the Xenomorphs. Their motion sensors are going off the wall as they shoot everything that comes up at them. They keep retreating throughout the ship, but there seems to be no end to the horde that are swarming all over them. They turn a corner to find one of the mercenaries asking for help. They realize that everyone else must be dead and begin their escape. They are running through while one of them says there might still be a chance for a handful of them to get out in one piece. Hicks drops the ship outside the alien hive, as the sand and dust danced around the ship like a mocking ethereal smoke. The Marines are almost at the exit as one of them yells at Bueller to keep moving. Bueller tells him that it is okay and he will provide cover fire as a Xenomorph sneaks up behind him. It grabs him as Newt tells us that the aliens knew and wanted to teach her a lesson about the futility of love and the horror of trust. The alien then rips Bueller in half before it is shot to pieces by the Marines. Newt screams, "No!" as the Marines look down to see that Bueller is still alive. We can see him saying please as we begin to realize that he was an android all along. And that is the end of Volume 5 to Outbreak. I hope you guys are loving this story. I'm curious to hear your thoughts and opinions in the comments below. And that's all that we have time for today. If you enjoyed the video, feel free to like and to subscribe to stay up to date on all my content. I'm Niat with Film Comics Explained. Thanks for stopping by.